last possible minute. Today we are discussing fair fighting techniques. Woohoo, woohoo. I think though, before we start discussing fair fighting techniques, we should check in with Jerome and see how his balance is doing.
Well, you know what? I was just thinking earlier today, things are going quite well for you, Jerome. Honestly, I've really been able to tap into just that balance I've been looking for. That being really just being able to find some time to get an exercise, plenty of time with myself. And as of recent, I've really been able to find time with people.
I'm going to stop you, Jerome, because I'm not hearing you.
You're not.
No, and Brooke, you're speaking. I can't.
I'm having trouble hearing you too.
Okay, let me adjust. See if I can do it on my.
So
happy Mardi Gras. I was listening not to Jerome because I couldn't understand a word he said. So I'm filling in the air till he's ready to get going. I heard Mardi Gras is more or less canceled, but what they did was a lot of people hired the artist that normally decorated and designed the floats. So they decorated it and designed their houses instead. So I thought that was kind of an inventive way to continue and be resilient, and take something that people could have had a sour attitude about, but change it and still make it a fun experience. Oh, that was cool. Okay, can we hear you now? Can we hear you now?
You can't hear me now. You can't hear me now. We're not hearable. Jerome, how are you? You want to test your audio?
I don't know. Can you guys let me know?
I can hear
that's
you great.
so
Yeah,
much better.
Much
Okay,
better.
cool. All right.
How's your balance?
So
Balance is great.
Yeah, how's your-
Actually, it's been good. It's been really good. I don't know if anyone heard out there, but I was mentioning, I was thinking about it earlier today that things have been going well. Things have lined up. Maybe not 100% the way that I expected them, but that honestly has been a good thing. I unexpectedly found some time with people close to me over the last couple of weeks. I think a lot of it had to do with a bunch of my family members have the same birth month, so we all got together and got to spend a lot of good quality time with each other. And also, I've been really hitting my stride with just personal time when that comes to working out and stuff like that. So really good, really great. Still, we'll keep it at an 8 for now, but I think I can get to that 10 really soon. So I'm feeling really good. Thank you guys for checking in.
Anything you would keep doing, change, adjust?
Oh, hi, Ernest Washington. Just wanted to say hi. He said hola.
One thing I want to adjust, which I mean, I guess it wouldn't be much of an adjustment because it's already kind of in plan. I've been really pushing myself, which has turned out to be, I think, gratifying for me. Rather than when I'm speaking about pushing myself, it's kind of in my personal time, pushing myself to explore, not just when it comes to exercise and stuff like that, exploring different things, things that I felt like I haven't necessarily had the time to, but I think I've given myself some mental clarity. I'm not sure exactly how that came about. I think maybe with you guys kind of giving me the space to kind of sit back and try and reflect on how to actually achieve the balance I'm looking for. I think that may have played a role, really. So I thank you guys for that. And me actually just finding some of that, again, mental clarity to go ahead and try things that I haven't necessarily thought that I've had the time for. And that, again, that goes with work, also with personal exercising and stuff like that. I've really been stressing the direction I go into. I have been doing less of maintenance and kind of really getting out there and pushing myself. I'm doing 100 miles. I'm trying to do 100 miles this month worth of running. We're just under 50, so I don't think I'm going to get there. But you shoot for the stars, land on the moon. So everything's all feeling great for me. So thank you guys for checking in.
I don't run. I'm jealous. Like I don't, well, I'm actually, doctors told me I'm not allowed to run. So I have a doctor's excuse. So if there is ever the zombie apocalypse, my choice is to hide. I will be hiding. All right. So today, fair fighting techniques, that is what we're talking about. And I want to start this. Can we start this with saying, we say fair fighting techniques, right? But it doesn't have to be a fight, right? I mean, we call it fighting. It doesn't have to be a fight. It can be a discussion or a talk, that's the idea, right? Is to get away from that concept of it being a fight. a battle to the death, to being an open and honest discussion between two people, right?
So part of that is you have to understand your own psychology and how you became who you are and what your triggers are. So there's some work, there's some background work, but absolutely you can set those boundaries and have a conversation, and it doesn't need to be fighting. Absolutely. Most people have to find their patience in that process and trust in that process.
So for me, rule number one would be to not approach whilst upset. To reset and take the time to do that, and then, but sometimes that doesn't always work. Our expert Lisa, any advice there, or any?
I think, you know, with each couple, it's going to be a little bit different on what that reset looks like and how it functions, and any kind of boundary realignment is not going to happen at either end of those extremes, at the high happy moments, nor is it going to happen when you're irritated and then upset with one another. It's in that balanced space that we were approaching Jerome about. You know, what is his balance based on what he shared he wanted to find in his world. In that same space for a couple, even in your working world, balance is going to be important to have conversation, to build and know who you are in that. Oh, it's snowing. Sorry. And to understand how you are triggered so that you work in what it is that you need in the moment. What you don't want is your partner telling you, oh, you need to go take a break. Because no matter
that never works.
Partner,
that never ever, I don't think that's ever worked in the history of time.
Calm down.
No, what? Just like when somebody says, smile, I'm like, how dare you tell me what to do?
You have to be aware that you are triggered and triggerable. I don't think that's a such word, but you know what I mean.
It is now.
Yeah. And figure out what you need to do in that moment before you ever get in that moment.
That's really critical, right? Is having this conversation of how do we handle this when we have a conflict, having that discussion when you're not upset before you even have a conflict of hey, we are always going to give each other 24 hours and we'll come back around and we'll talk. We're not going to make any rash decisions. We're not going to, where you lay your ground rules for an argument before the argument happens, right?
Well, and yes, the ground rules, and then you've got to practice them when you're not upset. There's a class that you and I are in, Brooke, that we're talking about practicing some repetition kind of behavior, but it's the same kind of thing where you practice, and it feels sometimes ridiculous that you're practicing to have a fight, but how else are you going to be able to pull in on that that memory in the moment that you're heated?
I have a question, because I mean, we're speaking about, being able to sit back, take 24 hours. Do you guys have any techniques to not allow yourself to react immediately when emotion has overcome you? Because like I said, I think that is something that's a bit easier said than done.
It can be, absolutely, because it's easy to just sort of like, and especially I'm somebody, I have PTSD, and when you have that, you a lot of times will react very quickly from an emotional place, and it's like overwhelming. And the key, I think, is it's similar to Pika. It's same with anything where any tool you would use it doesn't have to be anger, it doesn't have to be fear, or it doesn't have to be just when you feel that your body is shifting into that physical symptoms of your body shifting into an emotional state.
An emotional state that you're
a negative emotional state. Yeah. I think negative would be, is that a fair word?
Well, it can be a positive shift into a negative state because you're protecting yourself. But I get what you're saying for sure.
Undesired emotions. Well, if you know that being sad, you're going to react a certain way. Being upset, you're going to react a certain way. When you start to notice that first physical symptom, as Lisa taught me this, that's when you have to acknowledge it and change the course of action. and take that breath. Or sometimes, I mean, I've worked with people and talked to people who they're like, I don't know if I can do that. I'm like, what can you do to redirect that energy? What is an activity you can participate in that will get your mind off of it, that will help you get through it without just interacting with the other person? Space is huge, I think, during that time.
Yes, and there's probably finding and paying attention to what happened before you got to that space.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to, most likely, people don't quit typically cold turkey. There are some people that can go from this and then make a decision and they're done. Usually there's a transition process. So it's about paying attention to the step before you got upset.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you start recognizing and unfolding that, it's pay attention to that upset, that step, and the one before that. So it's kind of a look back to see what is happening and what ways can you identify the shifting that you're talking about, Brooke, in that space that you're not really wanting to go into. What is it that you can do in that moment when it's still workable, when we're in the yellow light, right?
Yeah, when we're in the yellow light. One of the tools that, again, Lisa and I are in a class right now, and it's called PQ reps, which is positive intelligence. But it's as simple. I think it's important to note when we say an activity, this activity shouldn't be like punching things or like going, or it should be something that sort of takes you to a more relaxed and meditative state, almost. Or so something that's repetitive. Or one of the things they teach us in PQ is you can rub your fingers together. And just focus on the sensation of the ridges of your finger and just really do that for 10 minutes, or close your eyes and listen to a sound far, far away, and then bring it in and listen to the closest sound. And it's just about shifting that roller coaster, that snowball sort of, and starting calming it down before it becomes, too far and too late. The amygdala hijacking happens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Olympic system. So the other thing that I use and been practicing with it as well, and it's always a practice, is I have one of the little puppies, Lucy, and
Lucy.
I pet him. So I feel his thick fur. I pay attention to what's going on for him. So that works for me too. Also, writing has worked.
Writing. Oh my God. Well, so writing, it stimulates the same parts of our brain that emotions basically are processed in. So when we write, the same parts of our brains are stimulated as when we're experiencing emotion. So when you write out, you're actually processing emotion. That's why every therapist, anybody who's in mental health will tell you journal, write. And that's because it actually helps you process the emotion and get through that by virtue of writing. Anthony says, here's a good rule. Don't dredge up the past. That is very, very important. Yes, it is.
I had clients towards the beginning, or clients, because they were a couple, towards the beginning of my journey and working with couples. And I was hearing all kinds of things. And then, the fix it mode, I'm going to tell you that's the answer. But it's like, have you ever written? Have you thought about writing a journal? I went down that path where I was trying to give her a fix in that moment. And she said, yes. Guess what? She came back next week. I go, how did that work out for you? I'm not a writer. That was an example of me not knowing my client very well, that I needed to wait and find out, not assign her a task.
Yeah.
Find out how she processed. Like with you, Brooke, I automatically know because we've had lots and lots of conversations that for you, writing, even sometimes while we're talking, is really special. Drawing. Well,
we talk. It's a miracle I'm able. The one with ADHD, even though Lisa might have it with snow. Drawing is really one of the things that has gotten me through life, and writing, absolutely, without like screaming and running out of a room. It's a miracle I make it through this full hour. But dredging of the past, that's agreed. Before we even get to the don'ts, I think talking about the do's of fair fighting is a good thing. And I think this is a big one. And this is something we talked about with brainstorming too, is define the problem. Because sometimes people, I know I can react about something that has nothing to do with the present situation. It's just, it just happens to be, you know, it's built up, it's pent up, it's any number of things. And so I think that's very important to take that moment and say, why am I upset? What is going on with me, and do that self check-in before going into the other person, talking to somebody else about it too, even having somebody that you can talk to and go, hey, am I wrong here? Am I, you know, there is a danger in that though.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you don't want to talk to someone that's going to say, am I wrong? You know, that's not the focus. Is I want to be able to express what's going on for me and get down underneath that. That's the person that you want to go to, not the person that's your best friend.
Oh yeah, no, that's bad. Because then you're going to hang out later and it's just bad for everybody involved.
You're going to support your best friend, and it might not be the most.
It's a neutral third party kind of thing. A neutral third party is ideal.
What you're going to want is a life coach here.
Yeah, right. I also want to mention too, we are talking about couples, but this is true of all relationships. Again, every technique that we share or we're talking about is throughout this month is applicable everywhere. It's not just between two people. In business is a great tool to I mean, that's what contracts exist for. The contracts exist to set expectation, to say, okay, this is what I expect from you and this arrangement, and this is, and we both agree. And that way we know when somebody is not living up to task, essentially. It's a great source of accountability. I'm not saying that all of relationships, I kind of am, but
contract is a boundary. It's the same thing. So yeah, so a contract, just like we do in business with contracts and agreements, and even if it's a verbal agreement, it's still something that we talk about and sets information about and communicate and provide clarity around and make adjustments when it's not working. The problem is often at home, we are much less tolerant than we are in the office. A lot of times we have more hideability, maybe.
I think it's so I was trying to put my thumb on this not too long ago. I think it was after one of our things, and I was like, why is it that we get so? And it's that I think a big part of it is that there is not often there's a lot of gray area and a lot of emotion involved in the personal stuff. And so because of that, there's this a fear. I think it's a fear that gets generated. There's a fear that I'm going to lose this, or I'm not going to have what I want, or I'm not, you know, these kind
People don't want to lose their jobs either.
That's true. That is true. But that's why that's what keeps them in line. I think that maybe
it might be, yeah.
The gray area, I think in the personal might come from sort of, I guess maybe people are more reckless in that way, but I feel like people are more I-centric when they're in a relationship, which you shouldn't be. It should be we-centric. But a lot of times people get stuck in a selfish headspace and they aren't considering the other person and maybe what their motivations or what they're doing.
I think a lot of people will get confused about what a relationship is, that it is work. We've said this before, that it is work. It's continual work. It's continual interaction. It's continuing sharing what works and what doesn't work. And when somebody doesn't share, you know, that's where oftentimes, even in work environments, when somebody doesn't share, like we had another business quite a while ago, and the corporate office wasn't sharing with us what's going on, but you know, something's going on, something's not quite right. And so when they finally do share, somewhere in you, you know, something is not right, but it always feels like the rug got pulled, right? Because we didn't follow our instincts. We didn't ask questions. We didn't get into the red flags. We just kind of let it go, which means we played a part into letting it
absolutely
go by not digging in there and really trusting our instincts versus the other, letting the other one be in charge.
Yeah. Well, and I don't necessarily think it's letting the other one be in charge as much as it is.
Actually, it could be lazy because I didn't want to upset the
Yeah.
term. Right?
Yeah, or I didn't want to set the norm, or I don't want I just want things to keep going, or I'm not even paying
Or I
attention.
didn't want to be right. I
Yeah.
wanted to be wrong, which is an odd thing to say.
That's what, so this brings me, Letitia Walker said, I've always said to win a fight or disagreement was not to speak first, but I think we shouldn't approach it from a win or lose situation, because I think no matter what, everybody should feel like winners walking out of because it's a discussion. It's about brainstorming solutions together, right? At least when you get to that point.
Well, I think if we put it in terms of winning, that means somebody can feel like they're I
Losing,
don't,
right? Like it's not about anybody losing or
about
winning.
winning or losing. It's about making a connection that's long lasting and beneficial to both of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think a really good way to put it would be to have a winning conversation. So
Say that again.
I think a better way to put it would be to aspire to have a winning conversation rather than
Well, and
side
that
of the conversation.
that comes from, yeah, rather than have it be an argument, have it be a conversation. And I agree completely. And I think that comes from Ernest Washington's compromise solutions. And that's where that, like, not having an expectation really comes into play. There is, I'm not going to go into this expecting to win. I'm not going to go into this expecting to lose. Now there's a difference, though. I want to in Letitia's defense, there is a difference between negotiating and having an argument or discussion. I mean, that there is a difference. Now, maybe in a negotiation kind of situation, it would definitely stand for you to not speak or hold your. But I think there's a whole different kind of element at play there.
Interesting enough, I use a lot of those terms when I am working with a couple. Negotiation, and that's the first choice versus compromise in my concept, because compromise typically, as we were talking about winning losing, somebody has to give up something for the other one to attain something. So I don't want to compromise. Negotiate so that we're working in an equal ground and movement that's going to be beneficial to both.
That's huge too, is that equal thing. Like I think a lot of times arguments come from us being stuck in an I state, us being stuck in a state of I'm not getting this, I'm hurt, I. And it's about maneuvering from the I back to the we, right? And a lot of times in order to do that, you have to understand and empathize and learn from your partner. And that's where asking questions comes in these situations, and trying to understand the motivations of the other person.
Which is what I mentioned last week, and probably lots of other times, that John Gottman's being open to the influence of your partner means you're open to hearing and adjusting as well. Yeah.
Anthony says, what if there is a clear winner, loser, right or wrong? How do I win or lose gracefully, or admit I was clearly in the wrong about something?
Humble. What's humble to you? What's the intent of having to be the winner or loser of something? It's just, I've changed my mind. That's not how I see it anymore. Or I was confused, or it's getting, I don't even know why I'm starting to get emotional, but it's about being flexible even in your own nature. And we're not taught necessarily to be flexible. We're taught to be more rigid in a relationship and fight for and that's not what it is. It's about understanding someone can change their, I hadn't thought about it that way. And just finding that humble peace in yourself.
Well, and that's being that's huge. Being humble, I think, is critical, and that's where that understanding the other person comes in, and being able to do so, and then I just being honestly, just being honest with how you feel, and
I think sometimes partners feel like I'm the one that's always going to cave. I'm always
Mhm.
making these, but that's somebody typically who's stuck in their, unless it's true.
Fear. That's the I state, though. That's
Yeah.
us being stuck in the I space
Mhm.
where I need this, I want this, I require this, and that's coming from fear. I'm afraid that I'm not going to get what I want. I'm afraid that I will be walked all over again. I'm afraid that, and that comes from not setting clear boundaries from the start. I think with yourself, which is really really big.
That is good for yourself and understanding who you are, what you want, what your needs are, how you can express that. I has to be a part of that. The we comes when we have to figure out how that mold is supposed to fit together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jerome, what are your thoughts?
I just honestly agree 100% with what you guys are saying. It takes, I think, also a pinch of vulnerability to combined with the ability to be humble.
Your volume's going in and out there again.
No, I don't know why.
Sure, I'm
Jerome,
sorry about that, guys. Good?
Everything.
Are we good?
Good, you're better now. You're better now. Uh-huh.
Okay. Let me get closer.
You just gotta get up on your mic.
Cool. Well, I was just mentioning, I think it takes a bit of vulnerability and mixed with the ability to be humble, again, as you guys are mentioning, to really to state that, I was wrong. It isn't always the most comfortable place to be. You definitely have to do a bit of relinquishing of the ego. All, again, understanding what the intent of the conclusion of this conversation is. It's ultimately to be right, and you're wrong. I think you've got to do a little bit of soul searching as to what the reasoning is for that.
I don't think it's fair to say right or wrong.
Yes, you're right.
I really don't. I don't think it's fair because I think that we are all human. We're learning, right? And that's approaching it as if I was wronged or you wronged me is not the right way to approach it. It's that the question really is when you're going into these situations to speak with someone, is you are either committed to preserving the relationship or committed to not, pretty much. And so I think it's about communication, really, and discussion and understanding and going, this is a place for us to learn from one another and be better out of this, right?
So,
yeah, ultimately, I think a winning conversation is comprised of gaining and giving perspective. I think that is what ultimately leads to what I would consider a winning conversation. Again, this whole right and wrong thing,
I hate it.
That's pretty much just like what there is no black and white, and there's always in between. There's always alternate options there.
It's unfair for us to say that somebody's right or somebody's wrong in that situation because it's disregarding the other person's experience entirely when you do that. It is just saying I'm right. Then at that point, that sort of just throws the other person's experience out the window. And the reality is, everything in a relationship takes two people. So there's a role played regardless. And I think that's a big part of it is being able to go, okay, I played a role too, and that comes from that humble place as well.
But it's also each of us have our own perspective. It's the concept of the balloon. One side's blue, the other side's red. I use this little art thing sometimes when I'm working with a couple, and it's a number, and I go, well, what number do you see? Well, what number do you see? Well, who's right? Who's wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And you can't have a right or wrong. It's the perspective of the individual looking at the situation, which is where growth can become really exciting if you allow it, because you as an individual, I as an individual cannot see everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not be in every perspective. I do not know anything or everything. I can, even on a subject that I'm familiar with, any person cannot know it all.
Mm-hmm.
Teenagers maybe, but
well, that's the big part of that is that communication is us talking through what's going on, because I think sometimes that I and that fear state comes from a disconnect in communication and somebody feeling like things aren't quite, like you said, right, or going or something, and then not getting the reciprocated talk, and then somebody ends up getting hurt in sort of a silly situation a lot of times. And the legwork is really to be able to have an open pathway of communication between people. It's same. I mean, it's the same in business too. In business, I've told everybody I work with, over communicate. I would rather you tell me everything, because I can't know. My dad is I always doing this with my dad. The way he explains it is, though, if I was having a deal with somebody, right? And before that deal went through, I want to know every single detail of that business. And if you don't tell me, if you withhold that from me, how do you expect me to make a deal that is viable when I'm not playing with the truth, the whole picture to begin with? I can't make a logical decision when I don't know the full picture. And so that's that conversation and that communication is very important. It's why they do audits before business. It's why you get your house appraised because they have to know the whole picture before you can move forward, right? I'm going to pull up my little list of fair fighting techniques really quick. I'm one of the ones that I liked in this too. We can go through the pretty standard, the ones I think we all know, which is don't name call, don't stonewall, don't. I think a good tool is to set a time limit, to set set a time and a place and a time limit, so that you can go about life and life can keep going. And you go, okay, we'll talk about this later. It'll be fine, and then we know, and we're not going to let it draw out for longer than 30 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is. And you can come back to it again, right? If you need to, but you just don't want to beat each other up for some extended amount of time.
Is to think back about your experiences when you start out having conversations. When does it start to go, as I call it, south? Back that up. And if it's, we can only survive 3 minutes, then you have a 3-minute conversation, right? Set the timer for 3 minutes. And as you discuss every day for 3 minutes, as you become more successful at remaining at the balance or calm or a place where you don't feel like you're getting to extremes, then you increase that time frame. Then you can have a longer conversation. There's many times a couple said, wow, 3 minutes. And they experimented and they were able to do 3 minutes. Then they did 10 minutes and that worked out fine. Some went to 30 minutes. It was too much, too fast, too soon. So you have to watch yourself, how you're interacting, what your attention span is, your resilience in that moment, and learn to work with it.
Well, and that's that being self-aware of your emotional state is huge, and being able, that red light, green light, that first symptom of that physical symptom of your body shifting, because it happens. Our body chemistry switches when we start to get upset and emotional. We are flooded with hormones, and that's often why we can react in ways that we aren't proud of later, or we feel like we have out-of-body experiences or things of that nature. It's because we are reacting from a very emotional state, and you cannot take the things. Now, mind you, we should all behave like adults and not be calling people names. But if somebody's upset like that, it's not about you. At the end of the day, it's about them. Most of the time, I mean, it's always about them. So don't take it personal. And that's maybe where some of the empathy can come in, is going, okay, something's really going on with them for them to be that upset. Maybe they, need to talk, or maybe something along those lines. It might be, it's a big indicator that something's going on with that person.
The way that you're describing it sounds like it's not a normal behavior, but there's some couples where they go to 0 to 60. It doesn't take much, and it's offense. So,
like, you left the top off the toothpaste.
Coping mechanisms have to be worked on in that individual, not in the individual is rarely happy that they blew up like that, which they have to work on their coping mechanisms. I'm not saying I will work on it. That's them recognizing that piece. What's a coping mechanism, guys? What do you think is coping?
Well, it depends. I mean, are we talking about healthy or unhealthy?
Yeah, let's think about
because you can use all kinds of things as coping mechanisms.
People do, right?
Mm-hmm. But I mean, like we said, writing, meditating, taking a moment to working out, doing these kind of things, talking to friends, using your support system. For me, that is critical. Like I often have trouble asking for help. I often have trouble admitting weakness. And so it's sometimes very hard for me to reach out to my support system because I'm not good at it. I want to be perfect all the time, damn it. And so I've learned, especially the older I've gotten, that it is so important. I cannot do it alone, and I do need to have somebody to talk to and to talk it through with. And I need to tap into my support system. They bring me sanity and other perspectives as well. Because sometimes you get so stuck in this myopia that seeing the whole picture can be a whole thing. It can be quite difficult.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't even realize we're acting like assholes.
It's really scary sometimes. You can go down that tunnel and not realize that you've been there for a period of time until you've gotten that perspective that you're speaking about. And then, you kind of have that aha moment. You're like, wow, that was me. That was really where I was coming from on that, particular subject matter.
And now I need to change that, or I want to change that. Yeah.
So if you're feeling overly righteous or overly justified in your actions, that's a good indication to take a look at things. Because frankly, there's lots of different sides to a particular situation. And if you are in mind, I'm saying overly righteous, I forgot what the other word is now all of a sudden.
Overly angry, overly anything, really. If once you've reached the field of over, you probably should take a step back, because even it is an indicator. I think even over excitement can be. I had somebody I was in a class with a while back, and basically he said that you can choose, if you resonate all the way up here when you're excited, you're going to resonate all the way down here when you're down. So the idea is to bring the levels a little more neutral, so that way the peaks and valleys aren't so drastic and dramatic. Letitia Walker says, trust is huge too. Lisa mentioned a business relationship that she had a gut feeling, but to keep the peace and didn't ask. So to trust anything they had to say after that would have to have a level of faith. Trusting they had your best interest is huge. Yeah, that's what a relationship is I trust that you have my best interest at heart. I trust that you have my back even when I'm not present, right? That's important.
That's integrity as well.
That's integrity. Yeah. Well, and I think that that's true of all. I mean, I feel that, but maybe this is me being too rigid, that in any relationship, but I have an expectation that anybody I care about and love has my back when I'm not present, and they will talk to me if there is an issue, and they will talk to me through it, and we will get through it and talk like adults together.
But we also are still human at the end of the day.
Yes, that's true. Absolutely. And that's where forgiveness comes in, and that's where understanding comes in, and that's where that I do this too on occasion. I can't pretend I don't, because we all do everything. Yeah, absolutely. That humble and forgiveness, those are really key.
It's also, as Lucretia was saying, it's the trust. The trust is knowing that person loves you and supports you and wants the best for you as much as they do for themselves.
Now, does it have to be as much as?
I don't know. I don't know what the formula is.
I don't know. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's just, I think, I would say just know that they do. And I think it's okay if somebody loves themselves more. That's fine. But just as long as you love me enough and love me equal, love me, I would say, I guess.
The word is just love, right?
It's just love, right? Yeah, exactly. It doesn't need a measurement. It doesn't have to be we don't have to put it in a measuring glass.
Right.
You only gave me 2 ounces of love today.
Yeah.
I was prescribed a full 8.
I mean, ultimately, you have to take a certain amount of risk, right? I mean, we were speaking about this kind of last slide.
But Jerome, your volume again is.
I'm so sorry.
Get on it.
I'm so sorry.
We're gonna have to get you a new microphone.
I'm gonna have to see what's going on later. But can you hear me now?
For 6 days in classes, so microphone's tired of hearing about you.
Right. I was just mentioning. Ultimately, I mean, there's a level of risk that you have to take. not everything is gonna, especially when it comes to relationships, it's not gonna go the way you expect it to, considering it's a two-person type deal. And
Sit close
we're-
to your microphone.
Yeah.
like we were mentioning kind of a bit last week, it's sometimes you just gotta be willing to stick your head in there.
Risk, you have to risk, but you have to trust yourself in that
And
risk.
that's being in that gut space. Like, oh, and trusting yourself is huge. I know that. We've still got some time. So, but I want to quickly mention, when you're starting to get through it, you're brainstorming solutions. That's a critical is that you've got to be open and willing to hear the other person's solutions out and not just have I want it to be this way at the end. I want this, I want that. It has to be a open discussion, right? What is this possible solution for you? Okay, I can live with that, or I can't. How about if we adjust it here? How about if and that's that, having that communication, and that's where the negotiating really comes in.
Well, and then the commitment, meaning people will agree on something and then be in a good spot and forget all about it. So
is it forgetting? That's my question. Is it forgetting? I mean, I'm genuinely, or is it changing their mind? Because I know that
it depends.
You should leave some space for that to happen, that flex to happen, where, somebody might change their mind a little bit, somebody might withdraw a little bit, somebody might pivot, and you have to be willing to accept that and then have another discussion about it, right?
So the idea, if you agree upon something, you follow through with it.
Mm-hmm.
You have another discussion and you go, here's where my take is on this.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my adjustment. Unless it totally goes against who you are, which one, it shouldn't have been the agreement in the first place, right? So
yeah.
If you're making, that's kind of the thing with commitment. And I think what a lot of people miss is commitment is to get it done. What you've agreed to, what you've set up.
Mm-hmm.
So if you honestly forgot, then know yourself about that and write it down. Or what is your way to remember better?
So is there, and it's also comes in, okay, so if I'm on the other side and I'm setting a boundary, or I set a boundary for myself, okay, if I understand, if you forgot, what's the solution? And that's where that discussion comes in again. And it's that understanding, and it's being able to talk that through. It's not the moment that happens going, you forgot on purpose, I hate you.
Another really important piece to that is you've got to practice it before you're getting into a moment that's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you're not practicing it, you're not building that memory.
So how do you practice?
Yeah.
Like we're doing right now, have a conversation. We talked about yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
the commitment,
That check-in.
about our communication style. I want to acknowledge that I'm recognizing that I want to continue that process. I really enjoyed how right? So it's being humble and sharing what's going on.
That word is very important to acknowledge, right? Acknowledge that we talked about love languages last week and filling up somebody else's cup or what have you with their language. And it's important to take that moment to acknowledge the efforts of the other person. It may not be to the degree that you had expected or hoped or what have you, but if they're making progress, right, if they're taking the baby steps, it's important to acknowledge that on some level, don't you think?
Absolutely. I think that gives you, I'm sorry, go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, check your mic again there, Jerome. I think progress is another discussion. I might not progress as much as you are hopeful that I am going to progress.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do my best. I'm going to put the effort in. I'm going to acknowledge it with you. And let's pick this up again tomorrow and have another conversation. Let's do our 3-minute conversation tomorrow, and I'll share with you where I am with it.
I love that 3-minute conversation. I mean, it does seem like a short amount of time, but it can also be a very long amount of time. It can be, I have had some painful 30 seconds in my life.
Productive, intentional goes a long way versus unproductive and just shut the other person up because I don't want to hear anymore.
Well, and that's stonewalling, right? That is that's when you're not being sincere, you're not open. And that's a big thing, is coming into the space with willingness. A willingness is giant. The moment the other party is not willing to participate, they are willing to work as a team anymore at that point. They're just
Well, maybe just in that
in
moment.
the moment. I'm not saying forever and permanent, but in that moment, they're in that I space, and that I'm thinking about me, and what my needs are, which is not, you can think about that, but you have to at some point open yourself up to the concept of another human being.
Yeah, which I wonder how all of this time with COVID we're separated. A lot of people are single. I wonder how that's going to impact them, because they are an I. If you're single, you are an I.
Yeah. So we will find out. I mean, it's already find out. I mean, one of the things is they've already to bring it down, the suicide rates are insane at the moment. And it's the paradox of COVID. It was written about when this thing hit, and they put us into isolation. People were predicting this left and right, and that while we're saving our lives on one end, on the other end, we are going to be killing a lot of people. So, I mean, with that being said, we're not killing them. I mean, it's their choice. Everybody's, but maybe in a different situation, they wouldn't have.
Reach out and connect. Reach out.
Well, and that's that take a moment to check in with people that you care about, and take a moment
that you care.
Yeah, to tell people that you care. And that's that last week we talked about that love, spread the love, because so you never know who needs to feel it. You never know in that moment. Not everybody's capable of asking for that kind of reassurance.
And sometimes there's that fear of, well, will I get the answer that they really don't love me? Here's the truth.
Yeah. So avoid at all costs. But then again, I think though that that's a pitfall there though, because that's loving with expectation, right? Mm-hmm. That's saying I will only love you if you love me, and that's not exactly fair, right? I think that it's okay to extend love with the as long as you have boundaries, as long as you have healthy boundaries in that process. Yeah.
You guys hear me?
Yes, kind of. Cool. Right now.
Okay.
Right now.
All right. I was gonna say. I mean.
So much better.
Okay, perfect. I unplugged and plugged back in. Okay. That goes a long way. I mean, even if it's not coming right back towards you, expressing love, that could be something that goes. Say you're giving it to someone who you do love. I'm to the belief that will, again, I believe in energy very much. So I think that'll get passed along one way or another. Maybe they were incapable of really going ahead and expressing love for themselves at that moment. But since you went ahead and started that chain reaction, like, you know what, I feel really good today. So-and-so just said that they love me, or, they really liked what I did today, or they really enjoyed this about me. I think that goes a long way as far as, again, starting that chain reaction. I think it can go in different directions that you may not even be aware of.
And that can be true beyond just spreading the love. Like, do it with understanding. Do it with being calm. Do it with patience. You can start that chain reaction of emotional chain reaction with anything. I'm going to be patient with people. I'm going to practice radical patience today. And then tomorrow I'm going to practice.
What does that look like? What does radical patience look like?
Quiet. Yeah. And understanding, you have to be hugely empathetic, I think, to be patient. I really do. Because impatience comes from a selfish place most of the time, right?
I think so.
Which is terrible, because I have patience tattooed on my thumb as a reminder. So that's one of my things, is sometimes I can be selfish without even realizing I'm being selfish. And then I later realize that, oh my gosh, I've been completely selfish. And then I get mad at myself because I don't want to be. But that's not to say that being selfish is always negative. There's a book, I can't remember what it's called, but it is based on the goodness of selfishness. And then I have a theory that you can't really ever be unselfish. So it's not even possible.
Well, you got to take care of yourself before you can take care of people, right? Exactly.
We've been fighting, we're getting through, we're coming out the other side. What are one of the things I was reading is good to make physical contact, to do a handshake, to give a hug, to hold hands, to do something like that, because us as human beings respond to that kind of thing. So taking a moment to go give that hug, give that whatever, that moment of reinsurance can be really important and really impactful in healing.
Yeah.
And say, please forgive me.
Mm-hmm.
Please forgive me.
It can be. I think that's a love language that not everyone can reciprocate the same way.
They may not be ready yet to
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then that comes in with the allow time. Allow time. You might have gotten through it. You might have talked through it. Guys might have come to a solution, but that doesn't mean that somebody still might not be a little bruised, a little upset or broken or any of these things. So have some compassion and patience and understanding after as well. Just understand that.
And that's where a lot of the times we can check in with one another, back to that everyday 3-minute conversation. I'm noticing some distance here, and I wanted to check in with you. How are you feeling? I know that we talked about this, and if we use that word bruising, this was bruising to you. Mm-hmm. How are you feeling right now?
Letitia says, or excitement. So show some excitement about the steps you guys have come, the agreement you've come to, the next steps. Be like, that's that reassurance. Like,
we got through this. We're doing this. I'm really grateful that we've been there. So it's the gratefulness, the appreciation, the
appreciation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. These are all amazing words we're using. Grateful, humble, appreciative, communication, understanding, empathy. I mean, these are on the spectrum of the life is good, which is where we want to be, right? We want to be in that happy space, that good space, that loving, empathetic, understanding space. But I think a lot of times we forget it takes work sometimes to be there. It's not something that always comes naturally and easy, and to expect it to be is unrealistic, and it's holding yourself and others to a standard that is not real life, right?
I watched this movie. I don't remember the name of it. It's a newer movie. Or maybe it's a series. Anyway, it's these robots raising a human child on a deserted planet, doing everything right, everything perfect, and still it's imperfect.
There's a human.
So we're not robots. 1, 2, we have psychology based on how we were raised, what choices we've made in life. Learn to work with it, learn to grow through it, and share with your partner or your business partner or your person that you go to, or that radical honesty, but with kindness and candor.
And if you don't think business partnership is not a marriage, you're crazy. I mean, that because it's I mean, think about it. We spend 1/3 of our life sleeping, at the minimum of another third, if not half or more, working. So that's a big deal. That's a lot of time. That is a lot of time to be working with somebody. And if you think the business people don't butt heads, they absolutely do. But then the good ones will get through it, just like in a personal relationship or a friendship.
When you have the choice to persevere, that resilience can build, as long as you have that commitment piece.
And that's where this misnomer that couples shouldn't fight should be thrown out the window. I mean, they shouldn't fight, let's say, but when that moment you hit that thing and you come to a screeching halt, you work through it, but that makes a stronger foundation because you've worked through that. So we don't have to work through that again, and then it makes a stronger foundation, and all of that equips you to handle other things in life and with one another. I mean, you've been married for 30 years, Lisa. I'm sure that you and how Harold could handle anything.
Maybe sometimes not at the moment, but the thing that, we still get mad. Mm-hmm. No, we get more irritated than mad. We probably have once a year, maybe 2 times a year at the most, where we're mad. Mm-hmm. But the irritation, we have the ability to come back and have a conversation. Here's what I was trying to do. Here's what I was thinking. Or I didn't like this. This is not, while I'm still maybe irritated or angry, the ability to come back and go have a discussion have an unfolding and maybe take it in steps. That's where I think becomes important, because I don't want to beat him up with my anger, although I'm irritated about something and it needs to be addressed.
Well, and I mean, those emotions are negative emotions. Let's say they do serve a purpose. They do. It's not something that they do exist for a reason. And that's for us to indicate that we indicate a need for growth, change. If we all were in positive space all the time, we would just stay. We would stay put. It's the uncomfortable moments that get us into action a lot of times, and instigate change in life. We are almost done. Next week, I have no clue what we're doing, but it is something relationship related. And then what's exciting is the following month, March, what Jerome and I are going to be doing our challenge starting the 3rd, which I don't even know what day that is, but we're going to be, we're going to start putting stuff out about that. We're going to be doing a lot of how-tos during that time. And I just want to say, anybody out there that's fighting with anybody, take a moment, breathe, empathize, and go into it with an open heart if you can. And don't be afraid to apologize. If you're wrong, or there's no such thing as wrong or right.
What do you look like?
But there is, I messed up here, there's something you have to be able to admit that, right?
Because I'm just saying, I'm sorry. That
doesn't work either, right? That's that placation. Genuine, being genuine, as with all things, be genuine.
I'm really sorry this is upsetting you.
No, you're not.
You're wrong. You're wrong.
Jerome, last thoughts now that you fixed your microphone.
You got making sure we're good now.
Yes, you're great.
Okay, cool. Relationships. I mean, when it comes to relationships, I think there's always going to be that element of fighting, because we all grow, right? Individually as people. So there's going to be things that change within us that may be polar to what someone else is used to. So I think just understanding that is a natural part of a relationship. Again, fighting, for lack of a better term, compromise, I think maybe better. That's inevitable. It's going to happen. As you grow and as your relationship grows, there are going to be things that shift and change. And I think just, again, going into it with an open heart, being mindful of your words, and being intentional with your statements when it comes to.
I think pick your battles is important too. Pick your battles. And the top is off the toothpaste. Maybe we let that slide.
Exactly.
Not when the toilet seat's up. I'm sorry.
I love it.
The idea, I think, that you're trying to say is, if it's not at the end of the day really going to affect you.
Yeah. What's more important? Yeah. What's more important?
At the end of the day, it's going to affect you. That's a reason to have a conversation. Mm-hmm. There's some days that I am more sensitive than other days. This would not have bothered me yesterday, but today it bothers me. Maybe I wait till tomorrow to have a conversation.
And that's that asking yourself why you're upset, taking that moment, that beat to go, okay, I need to be self-aware before I proceed. That's a big one. That's huge. Like, that can change your entire life. And every situation is that taking a beat and checking in and being self-aware before proceeding. That can make life a lot easier if you do that. So, okay, we're done. Thank you guys for watching out there. And thank you to anybody who watches from here forward. Make sure you comment, share, like. This is Certified Life Coach Institute, and we train and certify life coaches.
Happy Mardi Gras.
In 3 days. Happy Mardi Gras. Happy Mardi Gras. Happy Fat